Coming to you from sunny California and the Great White North. Get ready. We are breaking down the obstacles on the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Saturday, April 13th, 2019. My name is Rich, and joining me to cover Game of Thrones is Bijan. How you making out?
Yes! Game of Thrones is back! Dun, 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 dun. Oh, man. I'm so excited. That said, no, we are not covering Game of Thrones. I imagine, like, all the parents are freaking out right now, like, no, turn it off!
Yeah, wow. That's all anyone's talking about, except us, because we are here to talk about ANW Junior, episode 15.
Yes. And also, you know, anybody on this show should not know basically what Game of Thrones is.
It's hard to miss. It's everywhere. But we are not going to be covering. I did say last time that we were going to be covering Million Dollar Mile this episode. It turns out they've kind of postponed it and are moving it to Saturdays next month.
Okay, let's be real. This is a CBS show, right, Rich?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so CBS is well known for, let's just say, if a show is not an immediate, like, big hit, and I mean, like, very high ratings, they get rid of it. This is not NBC or something where, you know, a show that does well will be put on. Like, if you remember, I believe the original American Ninja Warrior, when it was brought over to NBC, it did well, but it wasn't, like, crazy. But we like, put their efforts behind it, and then it became this worldwide phenomenon. CBS is not that station. and unfortunately, they made a lot of mistakes, I feel like, in the marketing department. And yeah, they're moving it to the weekends or whatever they're doing. Basically, we won't be seeing this show for very long.
Yeah, I think they've already got their big, successful, long-running reality shows.
To say the least, bro.
So they really don't need more. This was like testing the waters, and it sounds like it wasn't a successful test. It's being shifted to Saturday, seemingly to go away. But maybe it'll recover. Yeah. Maybe it'll find an audience there that they don't expect. We'll see.
Unfortunately, I mean, I can't speak to all of it, but from what I saw, I enjoyed it, man. But another thing I was thinking about was like, man, every single one of these contestants are like winning money, and like they got like $50,000 locked in if you get to that point. Like, this might not be a cheap show to produce. I mean, it's a fault of ANW. I'll say it in my opinion, but like, let's just say, not many people are getting large sums of money when it comes to American Ninja Warrior, right, Rich?
Yeah, they're starting to come around with that, right? They're starting to give away some money. Like, that lends to the excitement for the show, right? Not just for the ninjas themselves, but for the viewers at home. You want to see people win money. You want to see them get excited and celebrate like we've been missing for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, on ANW Junior, they can win money too, surprisingly. And
hey, what is the prize for, like, in the finale? I didn't even think about that. What is it?
I forgot that there was actually
but there is a monetary reward, though.
Yeah, they made a point in this episode. One of the little girls, her mother's bathroom had been destroyed in a flood, and she was going to use the money to build a new bathroom for her parents, supposedly.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. So that reminded me that there was a prize at the end, which makes sense. Of course, there's a monetary prize of some kind.
I mean, was there for Ninja versus Ninja?
No, but these are little kids. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong. But I was just curious if this is like the first time we've seen it on this format. Sounds like it is. No,
Ninja vs. Ninja had a money prize too, just not $1 million.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wasn't expecting $1 million, but you know, I'm happy. You know, the winners of such a huge like gauntlet, so to speak, you know, did win something. I hope the runners up also got something, because I mean, they went through a lot also.
All right, so let's get into the episode here. Before we cover it, I actually kind of want to talk about like overall feelings on the episode. Did you think it was a good episode or a bad episode?
You know what? I kind of enjoyed it. It wasn't like, you know, the top echelon of episodes, but I gotta say, like, man, how do I say this? Like, when it came to the qualifying, like the first runs, or so to speak, they were just there. There really was a big threshold of like the kids that would do just well, nobody did poorly, but there were the kids that did well, and then there were the kids that were experts, that excelled at this stuff. But when it came to the finals, I gotta say, that's where this episode really went into top gear, and it was some of the best runs I've seen all season. I mean, these final runs, they were really something, just back and forth. The children's really going for broke, and I think that made the entire episode.
I feel like this episode had the strongest final runs of any that we've seen, right? They're very evenly matched. Mm-hmm. There were no age categories that were really weak in any way. And even within those categories, there was no blowouts. There was no race that was going to be a clear winner. It was just a very, very good, strong final six.
100% agree, man. It was great.
One thing that I did find lacking, and I hate to criticize the show in some ways because there's little kids, right? I don't want to get down on it too much, but I did find a lot of the stories lacking this episode, right? As strong as the runs were, there were some pretty weak stories. I'm not going to call out specific ones, but there was just some that really didn't hold up to what we've seen from a lot of the others.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just fatigue of being so far into the season, At this point, we're getting a lot of the same type of stories, and I think that might be what it is. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate of where they're allotted and everything, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that, or I felt like these ones were closer to what I expected when we initially started. I had prejudged the show thinking that they're going to be stories that are kids-centric and kids will be able to relate to them, and that it would be hard for me to relate to. So, like I said, I don't want to call it anybody specific, but it's oh, look, I have a new pet dog, and that's the story. It's that type of, stereotypical kid story. Whereas most of the season, we've been getting these top-notch athletes, taking down, gold medals and world championships and all these crazy things that they've accomplished. I felt like this one was kind of more home-centric, kind of, general kid stuff.
Yeah, I understand.
But that said, the athletes themselves, they were fantastic. They did a really great job on the course. So let's talk about how that went down. The age 9-10 bracket, we had Will Arnstein versus Ollie Huss, who really threw me for a loop right off the bat. I gotta say, he had his own face on his shirt and a rat tail. And before they went into a segment, I thought, oh no, do we have the first heel of ANW Junior? Is this kid, he's going to be hard to like with those two qualities?
Yeah. I mean, the kid knows what he's doing. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Having your own face on your shirt, and in particular, the rat tail. But I will say this. At that age, I mean, I don't necessarily know if kids, how do I say this, know how that comes off from an adult mentality. That might be our own prejudices, right, Rich?
It could be.
Some kids are like, yo, this is what I do. I stand out like this. What's up? And you know what? At the end of the day, own it. That said, I mean, yeah, I was kind of like, oh, what is he going with this? This can go many ways.
Yeah. And he looked like he was playing it up too. So it was like, oh, geez. It seemed intentional, like you said, almost like he knew exactly what he was doing. And then they cut to his segment, and the segment was great. It had some of our favorite ninjas, Jake Murray, Jamie Ron, Grant McCartney, all running like a ninja camp in this kid's garage. What a cool story.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, he kind of reminds me of a mini Jake Murray. And yeah, I mean, it was a fun segment, and I don't know. As you said, it was a really nice story. I very much appreciate in particular the fact that, I believe the kid's father said, he opened the gym up to the entire community, and it's free for everybody to visit as long as they're children. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was very cool. And so I don't know what I expected next, but it wasn't for these two to take off as fast as they did. Ollie and Will absolutely took off like a bullet. Ollie was just a little bit faster though, one-handing his way through the spin cycle, and both of them are great. But Ollie ended up winning it.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we had Grant Snook versus Amy Pineau, I believe.
Dude, Amy looked so young. Was I the only one?
No, you were not the only one. She was only 4 feet tall. They called her Tiny Dancer because she was a dancer. They had a very touching story about Hurricane Harvey, the flood. They lost everything. But she continued dancing and doing ninja throughout it because it was helping to keep their spirits up, which was, I think, a great idea.
I mean, still, though, for me, she might have been like the youngest looking athlete on the entire show. She looks like she's 5.
She did. She definitely looked
no
way
offense
under.
to her or whatever. That just makes everything she does more awesome. But I'm just saying, I was like, whoa, she looks young.
That was jarring. It was really jarring. So once they took off on the course, Grant got ahead when Amy was struggling on the ropes. But he started having trouble with the TikTok, and she ended up passing him, and he fell trying to make to the cargo net from the TikTok, and she ended up winning the round. It didn't look like it was going that way at first, but so I was pretty happy for her when the Tiny Dancer brought it home.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere. I was not expecting that, but go on, little Amy, man.
So that meant that Grant went up versus Ollie, who had won the first race. Ollie finished the course in under 40 seconds. Grant managed to complete the course this time, and Akbar named Ollie the Hustle Ninja, which I didn't get until later. I felt so stupid when I noticed that his last name's Huss, so that's why I call him the Hustle Ninja.
Oh, I didn't even make that connection. Okay, well, I mean, you're the Akbar whisperer, because there are some Akbarisms where I'm like, all right, that's a thing, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't like the name, but I get it at least a little better now that I realize his last name's Huss. What did you think about Will's, where there's a will, there's a way?
I mean, it's cute. I mean, it's there. I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me, really, but I get it.
Right. Will was actually, in the next race, they had a little segment on him where he does parkour and he makes his own home videos. It was a cute little segment. He went up against Amy. Will got ahead and ended up winning. The Tiny Dancer, Amy, fell on the spin cycle. Moving on to we'll circle back to the finals because as we mentioned, there were like 3 really huge races. I'd like to actually cover them all at the end.
Yeah.
So moving on to 11-12, we had Brooklyn Sittner versus Yakira Hoffer. And Brooklyn's segment, she's a weightlifter, an aspiring Olympian, and probably the most well-spoken kid I've ever seen.
First of all, she sounds like an adult, and I don't mean that in an disparaging way. Like, she's really, as you said, really well-spoken. And not only that, dude, I did not know this until today, but there are 11-year-olds stronger than me. Who'd have thunk, Rich? Like, there is no way I'm lifting 135 pounds over my head like that. I mean, props to this little girl.
Yeah, and then when the race actually started, Yakira took the lead immediately. That is the other contestant. She stayed ahead and took home the win. Brooklyn fell on the second spin cycle.
Yeah, it's one of those things where her story might have gotten her on the show more than her experience on ANW, but you need that nice mix between the two. And I appreciate that she was here on that.
Yeah, because she definitely brought the story, brought the personality. She eats the lens, right? She's everything, got all the personality for the show that you could want.
100%.
Next, we had Jonah Taggart versus Tyler Smith. Tyler builds rockets and has a backyard course. During the race, Jonah made a really quick move on the ring toss dismount and the first flywheel. Got to the wall first and ended up winning it, but Tyler almost did it.
Yeah, I mean, they were both really fast. I was actually really impressed by this particular race.
Yeah. There's a few of them where somebody would get ahead and the other one would start closing that gap, and you weren't quite sure if they would get it done by the end, and this was one of those. This meant that we had Yakira versus Tyler. Yakira, if you remember, won the first race against the weightlifting girl, Brooklyn. Yakira can't compete or train on Friday nights or Saturday because she's an Orthodox Jew. She wears a skirt over her shorts too, so it's kind of makes her stand out quite a bit. Interesting story. Something we haven't really seen much or anything of on Ninja that I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see diversity and, different groups kind of represented on the show. Like, have there been, like, I'm trying to think, like, other types of, people that are strongly into religious faith. Like, I know there's a lot of Christians in the ANW community, of course. But, like, I'm wondering if there's, like, a predominant, like, Muslim, a female athlete or male athlete in the ANW community. I'm sure there's got to be, just based on numbers alone. But, I like, there's nothing that really stands out off the top of my head. Anything stand out to you, Rich? Like, anybody?
I'm racking my brain. I can't really think of anyone that stands out too much. And I can't think of any that talked about religious like faith restrictions that were causing it more difficult to train. So it was kind of interesting from that perspective.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, when it comes to like religion, that is kind of a taboo in American culture when you go a little too strong in one way or another of talking about it, That said, I mean, diversity and different groups are important, It would be nice to see somebody like really representing I feel like the LGBT, there are some, what do you call it, like athletes, but somebody really like embraces that whole not persona, but you know what I mean? Like that part of their life. And maybe somebody, once again, talking about, the Muslim community being like, hey, we're not all scary or whatever people's prejudices might be, and a variety of religions. Like, I'm not a super religious person, but I'm always up for anybody representing different groups.
You know what? Now that I think about it, I feel like there was a rabbi that ran last year.
Oh, you know what? There was. Good point, man. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We need more like that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be religion, it could be a variety of things. But I like to see that kind of stuff. I mean, we are, this is American Ninja Warrior, and America's big thing is that it is a melting pot.
Very, very true.
Heck, I have a dreamer on the. Well, I feel like there were dreamers, but like stuff like that,
Right.
Where it's like, hey, people like, oh my gosh, people talk about it all the much, but it's like once you see an actual person there, you actually get some context of the humanity of a person and a label.
All right, so
when did this become political?
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, moving on. Rant over.
We had during the race. The race was very close to the end of the rings, but Tyler pulled ahead and blew through the course. Yakira was ahead of her pace earlier, but just not quite fast enough to bring home the win.
Yeah, man, I kind of thought Yakira might have had it. She was very she did very well in her initial race, but it was one of those things where those rings really messed her up a lot. And unfortunately, the guy she was competing against, he just did not slow down. She didn't get a chance to make up that time spent on the rings.
Yeah, there are definitely some episodes where we would have seen her in the finals or winning the whole thing. She was very, very good. Just not quite fast enough to beat Tyler.
By the way, what do you think about Caiden's segment coming up?
Oh, we will get to that segment for sure. But I will say that I was able to identify very closely with Caiden for sure.
Yeah, not me so much.
But let's get out of the 11-12 first. We actually finished it up with a fast forward of Jonah versus Brooklyn. Jonah was just unfortunately a little too fast for Brooklyn, and in the end, we had Tyler versus Jonah, a rematch in the finals. So we'll get to that later. Moving on, here we are. Caiden, Tyler Kurtzels versus Caiden Madzelan. And Caiden's segment, we learned that he is a Dungeons & Dragons gamer and a fellow nerd, let's say. I think that would be fair to say. I think, Caiden, if you're listening, I'm sorry for calling you a nerd. I don't know if that's still a stigma as it once was, but
dude, that is not a stigma. Like, people love the term nerd nowadays. And he embraces it. Good on you, bro.
He seems to. Yes, he does. I have to take issue with him saying that D&D gives you an adrenaline rush. I do feel like that may be overstating it a little bit.
I like to think there are levels to all nerdom and everything, and he trumps me on that one. There's, I can't say Dungeons & Dragons was my thing, but Pokemon was. So, there's that. But this was quite a segment in terms of like the production. They've got like lighting behind him and like fog effects and like all this stuff, and I'm like, who is this guy? Or like they're amping him up, and then all of a sudden, like he's rolling like Dungeons and Dragons things, and I'm like, what's going on here? I very much am wondering what was happening with the editing of this video.
Yeah, I don't know that we can really blame Caiden so much for that part.
No, it's not his fault, but it was weird.
But the puns, I mean, for someone who actually enjoys puns, I feel like they were a little strong this time. He was going to cast a spell on his opponents. And there was just a lot. There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as someone who started and failed, I should say, started a failed Dungeons and Dragons club in school, I definitely feel you.
You did not.
Oh, I did too.
You know what? That really shouldn't shock me. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going back to that someday, bro.
One of these days, for sure.
I'm going to remember that one.
But okay, so when we look at the race, we have...
Nothing wrong with that, people.
That's right. There is nothing wrong. Dungeons & Dragons is a wonderful game. Tyler ended up taking a spill on the floating steps, unfortunately. He did catch himself, but Caiden brought it home because of that lost time. Moving on, we had Paris Juarez versus Ben Stein with a fast forward. Paris fell on the TikTok, and Ben ended up winning it and looking very intense. He looks very, very he's got a game face on for sure.
Yeah, totally.
So that meant that Paris then had to go up against Caiden, the D&D gamer. Paris' segment included her collecting seashells. Caiden got ahead. I think I may have tipped my hat, revealed my hand a little bit there. Caiden got ahead and didn't look back. Paris was able to complete the course this time. It was great for Paris. I'm glad that she was able to do that.
Yeah, man. I mean, unfortunately, she was going up against Caiden, and there are just some ninjas for me where it's like you see their initial run, and it's like, well, that person's very much making it to the end of this.
Yeah, for sure. But sometimes you can be fooled, right? And things can happen. And in the next race, we had Ben versus Tyler. And I really kind of thought, after seeing how well Tyler did on the first run, I thought it was Tyler's to run away with here, but that wasn't the case. Tyler's segment, his brother has type 1 diabetes, and he trains with him. Once they started onto the course, they both took off extremely fast. Ben got ahead right off the bat, especially after doing really well in the double steps. Tyler made a move on the flying shelf grab, but was just a step or two behind in the end, and Ben ended up winning it.
Dude, I mean, this was when the episode really, kicked into, next gear. It really was amazing, all the runs from here on out. In particular, I mean, props to Tyler. This guy on those shelf gab went for broke and was, just skipping them one by one with, no kip-ups at all. He was just going for it. And I really like that dedication and just really, just going for broke. And he almost made it up that warped wall in time. I mean, props to him.
Yeah, great race. And like you said, all of the races from this point forward were fantastic. We had some great ones along the way, but this is where it was just, kept getting better and better. So going back to the 9-10 finals, we had Will, where there's a will, there's a way, versus Ollie, the hustle ninja. Very evenly matched. This was their rematch. Ollie pulled ahead on the spin cycle and ended up with the win in the end, but fantastic job by both of them.
Yeah, it was a penultimate obstacle, now I'm thinking about it, that really makes a difference for all these runs. And like the last one, it was Ollie, right, that won this?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ollie, he was actually behind for most of this race. But once he got to that was it spin cycle? You called it?
Yep.
Once he got to that spin cycle thing, man, he went for broke and just immediately started doing that, grabbing one or the other. I forgot the name of it, kind of like when you do the chains. The heck is that called?
Hand over hand
Iron
or
Cross.
something?
He was kind of like doing the Iron
gotcha.
Cross or whatever on each one and made it through. So, I mean, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was really good for sure. And I thought it was going to be hard to top. I thought, are we going to have some blowouts in the other age categories? That did not happen. In the 11-12, we had Tyler versus Jonah. Jonah got ahead early on, and then Tyler did something I have never seen before. He how do I even describe this? He one swung his way through all three flywheels. He just grabbed each one once in a way that I've never seen and got the lead and won the race. He went from a very clear behind position to absolutely dominating at the very end. He saved an incredible amount of time.
Yeah, and this in particular was very impressive to me because the flywheels are very, very difficult to do. Three like transitions in a row without stopping. Just the way they're built and everything, you can usually do one like one transition, like the first one to the second one. But usually you catch yourself and the way they work, they move backwards. If you're like, you have to do it perfectly. And basically, he caught himself, and the flywheel is at a dead stop on the bottom, which means there's no forward movement to help him. He did that final transition from the second to the third one at a pure muscle and grit and will of keeping his body up with his own core. And I know that's a lot of technical terms, but I can't even begin to like describe how difficult that must be. There is no way. I've tried this obstacle before. Very difficult. I get to the second one and I'm swinging for another like 5 swings until I get to the next one, you know? Yeah, this was very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Definitely deserved the win. And then we moved on to 13-14 and I thought, well, they're not going to top that because that was just amazing. So Caiden versus Ben. Ben was able to get to the flying shelf grab first in a very close race. But then Caiden ended up matching Tyler's feat from the 11-12 bracket and smoothly did like one move transitions through the flying shelf grab to bring home the win. It was a very, very cool scene.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I don't know if these kids were like just seeing everybody like just go for it on that second to last obstacle, but it was kind of the theme and it was really awesome to see. And more importantly, I mean, I guess the thing that really made it cool was that they succeeded in doing it, right, Rich?
Yeah. I don't know what would possess them to think that that was even possible. I guess when you saw the earlier kids doing it, it might make it seem that way, but it's just a crazy thing. It's not them emulating their idols, right? It's not like something they've seen Kevin Bull or Najee do, because I've never seen anyone do anything like that. It's so cool that they're innovating and pushing themselves even beyond what they've seen from their mentors.
Yeah, seriously.
So that was another fantastic episode of ANW Junior. Thoroughly enjoyed it yet again. Slightly stronger than the week before. Definitely some of the best ninjas we've seen in this whole tournament. And I think we only have one more episode before we get into the semifinals.
That's amazing, man. Almost there.
Yes, we are. And if you'd like to reach out to us, you can reach me as rich@ninjapodcast.com. I am at Ninja Podcast on both Instagram and Twitter. And Bijan, how can they reach you?
Yeah, hit me up at Twitter and Instagram at Bijan151. That is Bijan 151.
All right, thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
Peace, love, deuces, and Game of Thrones, everyone! Woo! It's back! Dun 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 dun!